Welcome back to another episode of Yelena Talks. On today's 9th episode, we will be talking about triggers. And speaking of triggers, I was getting a little impatient today. I was trying to record my podcast and the whole neighborhood decided to mow their lawn and I was getting irritated. And I'll be honest, I had to stop, take a pause and see what was going on and see where and why I felt pressure to do the podcast right now. And after I resolved it, I have a whole lot more peace. So I'm ready to go into it. But if neighbors start to mow the lawn, I will continue to record or I'll have to pause and resume. So anyways, triggers. This is a podcast I really wish I was doing with someone else. So maybe I will have the honor of just having another person to converse with in regards to triggers, because everyone has triggers, just like everyone has, common human experiences. And I remember a couple of years ago, I started to really learn the psychology and, if I could say, brain biology of what happens with triggers. And I remember one of the most just profound moments I had a few years ago was things that you've experienced that were traumatic. You can actually reset them and not be scared anymore. So like phobias. I remember I was taking a training, and if any of you know what EMDR is, it was an EMDR training, trauma processing. And when our instructor told us that you can literally wipe out traumas, paranoias, fears, my jaw was opened. I was like, I wanted to believe it and I couldn't. And the other part was, I was frustrated. Why did I not really learn about this in school? Like, how strange. Now, granted, in school, I learned other things. Wonderful. I still have some feedback about what I wish I learned in addition. But when someone said you could, again, wipe out fears, traumas, and what triggers are and how that brings about fears and the responses you have, I was shocked. And I listened to this trainer tell me story after story after story of people cleaning out these fears, and what they used to be petrified of was not taking a grip, did not take a hold of them anymore, of her clients, and they were cleared, they were fine. It didn't bother them again. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. And so it was a week-long training. It was a couple of years ago in June. And I said, okay, God, we're going to practice EMDR. At the time, I did a lot of EMDR. Now I do something called brain spotting. Either way, understanding trauma of the brain, how God designed that, has changed my clinical, professional, and personal life. So that week I said, God, this sounds a little scary. What is EMDR? What are these tappers? What's this and that? Is it voodoo? Help it. I hope it's not. And I said, I'm not going to do any of this on my clients until I become the guinea pig first. And I thought to myself, okay, what is something I am afraid of? And it was really obvious, dogs. And the story goes like this. I just remember when I was little, I was probably in kindergarten, maybe preschool, I don't know. I remember coming home with mom, and we lived in apartments. And all the kids were always playing out there. It's their little Russian village where it's a playground in the middle of the apartments. And I mean, no one really cared about TV back then because we got to play outside all the time. And so I came home with mom, we were grocery shopping, and we had a bunch of stuff we needed to take home inside. And let's say I'm 5 years old, I look outside and all my friends are playing outside. It was evening. I mean, everyone was out. And I'm just like, oh, I'm going to go run and play with everybody. And my mom sees my face and she's like, don't even think about it. You better help me with all the bags, bring them inside before you even go anywhere. And, being the little impulsive child that I was, my heart was split. I followed my heart. I ran towards those kids and I just booked it. I made a run for it when she picked up a bunch of bags and walked into our apartment. And I just started to run like a free child towards that playground, so excited. I mean, now I'm laughing. At the time, this was not funny, but what happened was halfway between our car and the playground, some random neighbors who were visiting someone came, parked their car, opened their door, and this dog just erupts out of that car. The only way I can really explain him is he looked like a more violent version of the target dog. At least I perceived him as very scary and big, and I'm tiny and wearing a little dress. And I just remember like sheer horror started to enter my face, my system. This dog running around, sees all these kids, freedom. He's just going a little psycho, running back and forth, excited, not sure where to go. And I just remember terror and fear start to come over me because this animal almost looks rabid in my perspective. And I'm running. I start to pivot and try to run back because I saw that dog was running towards a group of girls on some field. And one of the girls screamed so loud. I still remember who she is. She screamed so loud that I think the dog got scared, turned around, and he started to scan the like parking lot area for his next victim, which happened to be a young 5-year-old girl running in a little cute flowy dress. Me. And so he started to run after me. And of course I can't outrun this dog, this monster. And I remember I can't even run all the way home. I just kind of pivot in another direction. I'm trying to run, I mean, from my perspective, right? If I have a brain that's undeveloped, I mean, it's just like survival starts to kick in. And I remember tripping on a curb and falling to the ground, and he like looms over me. I don't even know. Like maybe he wanted to sniff and lick me. When you're thinking you're gonna die, your brain perceives and interprets that as he's gonna maul me to death. He's gonna bite me. And I remember, I mean, I'm kind of annoyed, irritated with some of these neighbors. I don't know who they were. They were visiting. They're not very classy. I'll just say it like that. It took them a while to finally realize to call their dog. And so they kind of whistled and yelled at him, and he came back, even though from my perspective, you know, they could have done that a long time ago, whatever. So I just remember fear, sheer horror, terror is in my body. I almost died in my 5-year-old perspective. I'm panicking, hyperventilating. I get up. And then I'm trying to walk back to my car, which is not far away, to grab the rest of the groceries. And I remember now my mom is coming out. And I wish she came out 2 minutes, even 30 seconds earlier. But she only comes out and she only sees me disheveled, crying, trying to walk back. She didn't even know what happened. She didn't know there was a dog. She didn't know any of that. And I just remember trying to breathe out to her and tell her like I was attacked by a dog. I couldn't get any of that out. And she just was like, Mom, I forgive you if you're listening. She was like, well, that's what you get for, you know, not like being obedient to me and doing what I told you and running off. She didn't even know what happened. And I just remember she took the next load of groceries and left. And I am just standing there with my trauma frozen, paralyzed in my system. Couldn't explain anything. I already felt guilty. I already know I disobeyed, right? And not 100% sure. I don't remember what happened after that. But carry this story out 20 years later. I just remember, dogs. I was so scared of them. I don't care if they were small. They'd scare me. I don't care if they're big. They'd scare. I mean, it got so bad. Like, I just hated it. The anxiety in my chest that would come out anytime I'm around a dog would scare me. I remember I was like walking with one of my counseling clients. We were on some field trip or something. And this is so bad. She was walking. I was kind of walking by the fence, and so this happened a couple weeks before that EMDR training I was at. I was walking by the fence, and all of a sudden this dog comes out and starts like jumping towards the fence. And I get so scared. Believe it or not, I'm so sorry. I almost threw that little client in front of me to protect me, to get in between me and the dog, even though there was a fence. I just remember starting to track like throughout life. I'm like, is this normal? Like, I know it's not normal. I know it's like now I learned it was a trauma response. I'm like, is this normal? This is how the rest of my life is going to be? I'm going to be afraid of dogs? And it wasn't just dogs. It was like most animals. If they were too jumpy or fidgety, like I was like, no. I could not be around animals very much. I was like, this sucks. And the interesting thing is we got a little dog, but I think because we got him when he was so little and he's so small and gentle, I was a little worried at first. Didn't really know how to handle myself around dogs, but I got very used to him. But other dogs, yeah, no, thank you. Absolutely not. And so I just remember I was like, okay, God, if you can take this, if I could say plague off of me, being afraid of dogs, animals, to this like severe level, if you could help me, then I'm going to believe that, you know what, we can rewire the brain and we can clear out traumas. Because what were my triggers? Well, first of all, dog, duh. The next one was, anything that would mimic dog. So the brain sometimes overgeneralizes to keep us safe. So now it's not just a dog, it's anything that resembles a dog. So it's an animal, it's anything that's super jumpy. So for me, it was very much so animals that are bigger. And I just remember, I'm like, okay, I already remember this whole story. I've thought about it like a trillion times. I'm still afraid of dogs. How is something like EMDR going to help me? And basically really trying to condense this concept of rewiring the brain. I had some tappers. It's just something that kind of stimulates the brain to process some stuff. Again, you feel free to go research what all that is. But I just remember sitting and just inviting Holy Spirit to help me process this. And I really was doubtful that I would have any new level or any new epiphany or anything. I did not understand what could be different. I've already thought about the story a trillion times. And I just remember sitting and processing and really trusting that whatever was coming up was relevant. And I almost like reimagined this entire story. And I just remember carrying this massive amount of anxiety and fear, walking towards my mom. And then I started to understand, if you know anything about something called circle of security, attachment theory, the idea is a child can go off and play and do their thing, but they have a home, a safe base, security to come back home to be loved, to be nurtured, to relax, to be soothed. And in that moment, I needed a parent to come to and just release that fear and trauma and cry and just get it out of my system, exit it. And what happened, because my mom didn't see what happened, I mean, if she had seen it, she would have come to my rescue, but she didn't. And so instead, she's like, that's what you get for, she didn't even know what happened, but it was like, oh, that's what you get for disobeying me, and just kind of left. There was no hug, no soothing, no come here into my arms where you're safe, no nothing. She just left. And I had guilt, and I couldn't talk, and you get the point. Again, I know my mom would have been different had she known the situation. But I realized now, seeing it from this adult perspective, kind of entering, if I could say, into my imagination, traveled into time, essentially, back into time, I remembered I did not have a release because I didn't cry, I didn't sigh, I didn't do anything. Essentially, that, if I could say, traumatic energy was trapped in my body. And so last week we talked about emotions, and we talked about how ideally emotions are going to be like a compass that let us go where we need to go into life. They let us know. But if we have all this baggage, all this like almost like wrong information, it's going to be really hard to know where to go. It's almost like a windshield. If it's so dirty, I mean, yeah, good luck. You might have an engine that wants to go forward, but if you can't even see where you're going, or if everything looks foggy or incorrect, you're not going to have a clear precision or perception of where to go. And so what happens in the brain with anything, and I know I'm using a very specific example, dog. I think a lot of people can relate. For a lot of clients, a lot of work with water. It's a common one. Kid almost drowned when they were little. Boom, afraid to swim after that. So there's like simple traumas, like an event, a single incident. Maybe it's a car accident. Maybe it's something embarrassing that happened. In more severe cases, there's complex trauma, which means The way I look at it is it's like trauma after trauma after trauma. You're just developing in trauma. That is going to take a whole lot more work to clear stuff out from that. And like I always say, it's not just trauma. It's trauma in the context of attachment, which means it's one thing when a kid gets in a car accident and they come home and the parent's like, okay, it's okay as long as you're safe. We got this. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. Just breathe. We got this. I get it. That's already traumatic, but coming home to that type of relational context is a lot more safer than it is coming home after a car accident and then the parent saying, you're so stupid. I told you, you're grounded. You're an idiot. How are you going to pay for this? You always do this. That I can already tell you, there's already a whole lot of trauma under that to begin with. And a car accident on top of that only like amplifies the whole situation. And so anyways, in my situation, dog, okay, that's one event that was already traumatic for any kid, okay? And remember, trauma is what's traumatic for you. No one can't tell you dog's not traumatic. If my only experience with the dog was being attacked, you bet my brain's going to interpret that as like danger, evil, survival, right? The deeper the almost died type of scenario, the more, if I could say deeper in that survival brainstem, reptilian part of the brain, it gets stored, which means you got to do some work to get that out. And so not only did I have emotions of fear in regards to dogs, there's some, I guess, researchers that will argue fear isn't even just like an emotion. Fear is like a complete physiological reaction, which means how does fear manifest itself in the body? Right? Blood pressure changes, pupils dilate, adrenaline, your nervous system hits into sympathetic mode, which is fight, flight. You are ready to now react in the face of danger. And so what happened was anytime I'd hear a dog, oh, and by the way, a dog, like, yeah, that's a dog. That is the threat. But a trigger could be, I heard something bark or make a noise, or I hear something breathing like a dog, or I hear the door open and something like paws on the ground. Like any data that your brain, which is a computer system that's gonna grab on and try to dissect for you. I think it's a dog. This data is saying it's a dog. Quick, go into fight, flight mode, and maybe even freeze if it's severe. And so I remember sitting there and processing this situation during my EMDR session. And I just breathed through it. I know it sounds so simple now. And I just sat with it and I realized this is what I needed for my mom. Comfort. I didn't get that. Now I'm able to let go and I'm not blaming mom. I forgive her. Like that wasn't her intent. I just remember it was so simple and things just made sense. And I like breathed out anything that I felt in that moment come up, if anything. And I just by faith also took it that it's cleared. It's gone. I'm ready to go. And that was that. And I honestly did not know if anything even happened. I do know that right after that class, if I could say we had that, one of the girls had her golden retriever therapy dog come out. And he was coming towards us and coming. And I realized my physiology. So my body, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't jumpy. I was aware there's a dog coming. And my brain was like, what do? I just had a therapy session where I was supposed to clear out this trauma. What do I do? Do I panic? Why am I not panicking? Am I making it up? Is this placebo? I just remember. Now I look back and recognize my brain was now in a neutral state regarding dogs. And I almost had to relearn and have a new experience with dogs. And so at first, because I wasn't jumpy, I was like, oh, it's probably because it's a well-trained therapy dog. And come on, golden retriever. And. Had all these reasons. I thought that's why I'm not reacting. Until I had another experience with the dog. And I was okay. And a second, third, fourth, fifth, if I finally realized, oh my gosh, I think my system is cleared in regards to data pertaining to dogs. And of course I wasn't going to like throw myself out to like a pack of wolves. Like I'm not saying you're doing things 100% opposite from your previous reaction. I'm saying now you're at such a neutral state. You almost get to relearn what is your reaction towards dogs. By the way, traumas actually get strengthened when, like, if it's one thing if I had one traumatic experience with a dog, but it's like you have two, that's it. Good luck. That's gonna be a lot deeper to clean out because now your your brain has extra data of why X, Y, and Z is not safe. But in my case, I just like started to realize not only was I not afraid of dogs, but my next insane revelation was I actually love most animals. And I remember just like celebrating, and something I've learned anytime I experience a level of freedom or whatnot in my life, I very quickly, well, not quickly, but I just realized that there's usually like other layers of other emotions. And some of it is, believe it or not, anger, which I feel like, wow, like I wasn't like scared and in that bondage for such a long time. And now that I'm free, I'm like, it's so easy. Like, how many years have I lost not being able to like relate to animals or whatnot? So I think some of that anger comes from, like, psychology would say, like a grieving period. But either way, I wanted to say that this is a very simple example. It was one of my first EMDR sessions. And after that, I remember I've processed so many different things. And to this day, I mean, that's where my fascination of the brain came, triggers. I remember just very quick, another thing I processed because I wanted to go deeper. I just remember every time I would take a shower, it was actually that week. For some reason, I would wake up, I was so excited for this training. I was learning so much about the brain and trauma and triggers and clearing it out. And I remember when I take a shower in the morning, I'd be so excited. And for whatever reason, by the end of that shower, it's just a normal shower. Like, by the end of that shower, I walked out feeling annoyed and irritated. And the first time that happened, I'm like, that's really weird. I don't know why I feel like this. The second time this happened, I'm like, what's going on? Like, what have I thought about? Like, why is it after I take a shower? What's going on? The third time, I'm like, okay, Jesus, thank you for this new level of healing. Let's do this. And I did another EMDR session, what was happening. And so just remember identifying, saying, I don't know what's triggering. So what's resulting to feelings of just this like unhappiness and anger. I don't know. I have no idea what it is. I feel like I'm waking up so excited. And I sat and did some EMDR, and I was just shocked about, well, I was thinking about this, which connects to that, which brings me to a situation that happened 5 years ago. I just remember going through all these situations and just sobbing during this EMDR session about things that were coming up. And then I was like, okay, wait. I'm processing so much. This is so helpful. What's happening? Why am I triggered in the shower? And I just remember, okay, this is how we do it. It's almost like a movie. Look at yourself. What do you observe? And I remember almost like in my imagination, looking at myself, my body, and it hit me because it was June, summer. I remember going to the lake a lot, and I was obviously getting tan from the sun, and I realized my tan lines were triggering me. No idea. That was so profound when I realized it. I mean, I did not consciously say, here, I see my tan lines. They're triggering me and making me reminding me of a situation that happened 2 years ago. No, it was such a subconscious, insane, like, brain calculation that was happening. And what happened was these tan lines were reminding me of something that happened in a certain situation. And it also happened to be that I was very, very burnt at that time from the sun. And I had very huge tan lines. What in the world? Okay, like, again, that whole week was so profound, and I started to understand triggers. I was like, are you serious? Like, tan lines. Like, this has nothing to do with the actual situation I'm processing. It just happens to be a little detail at that time. I hope you guys are all starting to understand how amazing the brain is. It tries to protect you so much that sometimes it almost messes things up. But at the same time, praise the Lord, God made it that the brain has these alert systems where something's off. He'll let you know, the spirit, the brain, whatever you want to call it. And it's the most remarkable thing, because then you can clean it out. And as soon as they cleaned it out, it's like, okay, now tan lines don't bother me, and I processed whatever situation I wanted to. which, by the way, the situation I happened to be processing was something that had happened. Like one event led to the other, because the brain just, oh my gosh, it stores things so wildly and profoundly. And I remember I was processing a situation that had happened 10 years ago in my life. And I just remember, no matter how much I would pray, try to forgive the people who hurt me, people trying to forgive myself. Oh my gosh, it didn't even matter how, excuse me. It didn't even matter how much I was praying about things when, excuse me. Okay, distracted. So anyways, it didn't even matter how much I was like praying. I realized I just had something that I needed to like process in my mind. And it was something like sitting in the car, talking to my dad and making him some kind of promise. And then for 10 years, subconsciously, I feel like I failed him or something. I could go on and on about, the more I understand triggers, the more I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you that you have been showing me, helping me understand the brain, the body, how when triggers come up, we have the opportunity to clear areas in our heart that now might be misstored, that might need to be cleaned out and processed. And the more healing I have in my heart, the more, like, again, abundance and joy and everything I have in my life. And so, I just kind of jumped into this podcast giving examples. And at this point, and like the years that I've done brain spotting, EMDR, trauma stuff, teaching people about triggers, it is the most fascinating thing ever, because when you start to identify, oh, that triggered me, and stop lying to yourself. Don't say, I'm fine. No, you're defensive, or you're mad, or your mood changed, or now you're quiet, or whatever. But stop. What triggered you? I'm asking compassionately. What bothered you? What did they say? And that's the thing with traumas, by the way, or triggers. It's not just, I wish it was, oh, a dog, it's just a dog, or it's just that person's comment. The reality is, whatever happens, it triggers if I could say, almost like hinges, or it's like, touches the wound of our heart, which usually is some kind of negative core belief, or it established a negative core belief. So let me think of an example. Someone said something and it triggers this belief of like, I'm not good enough. And so you're not as mad about someone's comment or upset as much as it's like this area that's already kind of hurting or ill in your heart is like highlighted and brought to the forefront. But then you got some work to do. Like, okay, why do you believe that? You're not a bad person. And the more identity work we could do, the more we can close up a lot of these traumas and not be triggered. So, I just think of, like, let's say in business, it's a big one. You know what? Hats off for anyone who even builds a business, or anyone who wants to ever show up as just a good working citizen in life. Whether it's your family or work, if you are putting yourself out there and being challenged and not forced, but you're putting yourself in situations where you're able to grow, get ready. God is going to meet you and bring things out where you need to be healed, and then stretch you in other areas you need to grow. And there's this concept, again, in attachment theory. You can do a lot of healing. That's wonderful. But then different relationships that you come in close contact with will almost trigger other things in you. And instead of pointing your finger and blaming them and saying they're bad, say, thank you so much that Holy Spirit uses you to illuminate hurts and pains and negative false beliefs inside of me. And now I have the opportunity to clean it out, process it, and integrate actual biblical truth about what God says. And so when I started to find out, again, through trauma work triggers, my own life with clients, it's not as much other people as much as it's our own stuff. When we clean that up, wow, we are able to sustain just almost like a divine elevated level of peace inside our life. And we can't even see, like, the thing is, when we blame other people for like triggering us, all you're saying is letting them know how much control they have over you, which gives them like an upper hand in terms of like twisted power. However, like, let me think of an example that's not like a dog. Let's say a common one is a person working through belief systems that they're like not good enough or something. Well, when you start to clean that stuff up and not believe that anymore, it doesn't even matter if someone flat out tells you you're not good enough, or in a little sly way acts like you're not good enough. I mean, if you believed you're not good enough, whether they acted or said it, or you interpreted their tone of voice like you're not good enough, it will bother you. But when you so have now healed and you know that you're good through Christ, in Christ's eyes, all of that, then it doesn't matter if people flat out tell you you're not good enough. It just doesn't matter anymore, because then it's irrelevant data for your brain, because it's not true. Or even if they act in such a way, you don't even partner with that. You don't believe, you don't make alliances with that. I think of the Bible verse that the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they are walking in agreement? And so I'm challenging everyone who's listening to me right now, whether you're business partnerships or romantic partnerships, friendships, doesn't matter. If you are walking in alignment with something and you're not liking the result or how you're feeling, okay, instead of maybe being disappointed and being helpless or blaming the other person, you got to ask yourself what's happening in you that's agreeing with whatever baggage or negativity is happening. And that's why you are still in alignment with that. Very, very simple. Yes, it is harder to clean it up inside, but it's like if you're with friends, partners, business people where you're always feeling like you're not good enough. Well, that's probably because, first of all, if that's not what God says, but you believe that, so that's already you. But also, well, then why are you in a partnership that continues to, let's say, reinforce that message? And when you start to realize you are good in God's eyes and you have healthy self-love and boundaries, you're not going to put up with any level of disrespect. I'm not saying you're going to act like vicious and just be all rude. No, I'm just saying, like, if you feel like someone's doing things that disrespects you, then you can do something about it. And maybe those aren't really your friends, actually, if they make you feel like that. But again, I remember I saw this post that said, there's a difference between feeling like you're being disrespected versus accurately understanding that a person is disrespecting you. And you're never, you won't know. And the more healed you are, the more it will make sense. Which sounds so opposite. Like we just want to have all this level of discernment, wisdom, and understanding. But the reality is, the more healed and clean we are on the inside, the more we can accurately discern and understand things. So, I know I'm kind of talking about more trauma, but everyone has triggers. It's not a bad thing. Believe it or not, I get triggered every day, and that's not because I'm this like horrible person. It's because I know these things. I'm so aware of like, okay, other areas I'm maybe growing and healing, and where I'm kind to myself. And last weekend, some people were talking about something. They didn't even directly mean anything against me. They were just talking about their life, and they said a couple like standards and expectations they have for themselves, and I started to feel kind of crappy. And they didn't say anything about me, but I realized I'm already from whatever they were talking about. It triggered, right? Illuminated. I like to say something is being illuminated in me that I'm already working on. Thank goodness that I already know I'm figuring it out, that I already know, God's giving me grace to walk right now in this area because there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And so all it did was trigger, or if I could say, inspire me to continue to heal and listen, search for God's perspective and voice, and believe that Bible verse, he who seeks will find. I believe, okay, Lord, this is a topic that's really bothering me, so I'm bringing it to you. I'm letting you know I'm seeking healing and answers and directions, and then I'm looking for it. So everybody, I'm encouraging you. Look into your life. On a kind of very broad level, what's something that triggers you. But if I could get even more realistic, on a day-to-day level, what triggers you? Is it a word someone says? I remember one time I had a client, and when I worked with high school kids, I just called them all my kids. And I remember I was talking to some girl, and I said the word kid, or I called her like my kid or something. And she just started to act a little different. And I was like, I noticed it later, like, why does she sound shut down? Like, what did I say? And I was just like processing, like, what on earth have we been talking about that made, she just sounds so disappointed and closed off all of a sudden. So a good thing I revisited that topic and I said, hey, what happened? She's like, I think actually it's when you called me kid. She's like, I come from a family where when my dad uses that word, it's because he's like belittling me and making me feel like a nobody and dumb. And I was like, oh, dang, that makes sense. The doctor apologized. And that's the thing. That's what the devil does. He likes to take everything and almost like twist it and make it evil when it's not. It's like, it's no different than the world claiming certain symbols and being like, this is what this means. And then they make it something like demonic. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to give it that power. No, thank you. And it doesn't matter if it's like superstition stuff, curses, I'm like, nah, I don't believe that. It's not true for me. Or like certain words and concepts. Like for this kid, it was the word kid that bothered her. So anyway, so like during your day, I encourage you all, watch what triggers you. And the interesting thing is, I've also have learned you won't always know that, oh, this person said that. You will only know most of the time you're triggered after some time goes by and you're realizing you're feeling or acting different. And then you have to kind of sit and be like, wow, why do I feel so bothered now? Or that's so weird. I was feeling good. It's like my shower story. I was feeling so good, excited. Why am I so upset now? Or again, your physiology, or I'll have kids, I've worked with where it's like they're distressed or they're crying a lot or they're shaking or shut down, or coping modes. That's a big one. They're already in these maladaptive coping modes doing unhealthy things. I'm like, what triggered you? Huh? What? I don't know. Well, let's sit down. Like, what happened? What's going on? Like, walk me through your day, your week, and almost inevitably something was done or said that then really hit a negative core belief or whatever. And then we start to kind of spiral and react and do things. Whereas if we knew what was going on, maybe we'd have some more control and power not to. So I hope that this podcast kind of illuminates just some stuff in regards to what triggers are. We all have them. They're not bad. Like it's good. Like if I'm thinking on a healthy survival level, there's certain things I should probably kind of try to stay away from. But the problem is when I think and interpret everything as bad, traumatic, and scary, how far am I going to go into this world on a human level with my family? How am I going to, like when I have kids, how am I going to let them out and experience the world if I'm petrified of everything? And what about my business? Today I did not really go deep into the entrepreneurship, but as you could see, all come on, you could be a boss and you're still human who wants to be loved and accepted by people. And what happens when you're triggered because you're feeling left out or forgotten or disrespected or etc., anything else? You're going to react. And let me tell you, when we're reacting, we're never making really good decisions because it's just that it's a reaction. It's an impulse. It's not necessarily a well thought through decision. So spend some time, everybody, track your triggers, see what are the common themes or common topics that get you or get to you. And, may you really heal. So that's kind of my podcast episode for today. And if you want to learn even more, I am offering July 26th, 6 p.m. Pacific time, a free webinar called The Illusion of Control. And if you're listening to this, then you can guess that I'm going to touch on triggers as well. And the concept is breaking free from self-sabotaging patterns. Because even when we sabotage, guess what? What happened? Oh, we were triggered because something happened and it really messed with us. So sign up. It's free, YelenaTalks.com. Register and we'll send you a link. And other than that, let me know if you are interested in hearing different topics. I love it when you guys comment and subscribe and like. That's so encouraging. And I really hope that God's people really get to go on another level But I'm convinced before anyone can hit new levels, they got to clear out, maximize, and heal this first current level where we're at. And so, God bless you all. May you continue to develop as kingdom citizens. I'm excited for the plans that God has for you. As the Bible says, He has plans for you to prosper. And so, let me tell you, now that you know this info, do something about it. Some of you, be encouraged, go sign up for some good counselors who are trauma informed, please. And if you are an entrepreneur and want some coaching in regards to reaching higher, newer heights, I do a lot of work with that. Check out my current 8-week program where I help you reprocess your brain. I go through schemas, assessments, do a lot of like psychology stuff to help you get to your new levels of potential. So again, God bless everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day.